Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Pleased to have you on board. Thanks for joining us. Got another great show lined up for this week. As promised, as you can see, Gary Dolphin, legendary Hawkeye broadcaster, joining us. We are in the fellow room here at Carver Hawkeye Arena. We thought better than being in studio. Dolph, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Welcome to my backyard, Dave. Good to be here. Good to be on. I see we got the message about the same color, black and gold coordination. That's good, man.
That's a good start anyway, right?
It is.
We
Great
gotta
start.
do it.
You bet.
Well, Dolph, as I talked to you this summer via Zoom, it's great to have you in person. And, we've done radio together. You've joined me on my radio shows over the years, and always greatly appreciate your time for this. We are recording this on Tuesday afternoon, February 22nd, 2/22/22. And Dolph, what a big time this is for our friends that join us on this show weekly. Craig and Stacy Schrader with fightwithflash.org or the Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook. And the acts of kindness. And you and I were talking off the air about what a great community this is at the University of Iowa and has been for a number of years, but we're really hitting an apex here. And unfortunately, we've had some sad passings here in Hawkeye lore lately. I was talking to my good buddy Joe Mershman, who you know from the Quarterback Sacks for Kids, speaking of giving, and he's a great advertiser and sponsor of this show. But when we talk about a guy like Henry Tippie, and then we also lost former Hawkeye baseball player Skylar Moss due to cancer, and then we also lost Mac McCausland at 75 due to natural causes. And boy, I'll tell you, when you lose big cornerstones in a university like that. But let's talk about this community and, where you at. You've been here for 25 plus years. You've been in broadcasting 50 years. What a time to be an Iowa Hawkeye.
You could almost say that every year,
Yeah.
Dave. Your point about Henry and Skylar and Mac is well taken. It shows once again, the older we get, the more we realize that minute or second hand never stops. Keeps going, and it keeps going, and time and runs out on everybody. But Henry had the opportunity to interview Henry a couple times in the last 10, 12 years, especially after he made the very generous donation to the Hanson Performance Center, the Football Performance Center, and the football program in general. And Henry was just a class act. The whole family, grew up dirt poor in Belle Plaine. He and his wife are wonderful people. They were living on their ranch down in Texas, and I'd not been there, but I was at the Dover International Speedway last May. I'm not a gearhead, but I'm an old race car fan, and I love the old tracks, the original edifices that have been built, like Darlington and Charlotte and Dover. And Henry, of course, is Enterprise owns the Dover International Speedway. I went out there last year with my brother and brother-in-law and my good friend. They're all gearheads, and we just had a great time. Thanks to Henry and Mike Tatoyan, who's the CEO and president of the Dover International Speedway, who's from Bettendorf, is a former Northern Iowa football player and UNI grad, and it reinforces that there are Iowans or Hawkeye State natives everywhere. Mac McCausland was a special person, particularly in terms of trailblazing for Iowa Television Network years ago with Larry Morgan and others back when there rarely was a basketball game on TV. Iowa, because of the Big Ten, they were on usually every weekend. Mm-hmm. And then it was the Big Ten game of the week. So out of a 14 or 15 game Big Ten schedule, then you might see Iowa on once, twice, maybe three times during the season. And then when Lute Olson came, that all changed. And the Iowa Television Network, Rasmussen, there were other corporate structures that ran that, but Mac was there for a good portion of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, as memory serves me correct, and he was in our living room each and every night. And then when, of course, ESPN and the major networks came in and took up Big Ten basketball and football along with the Big Ten Network, then Mac gravitated to other areas as a writer, as a broadcaster. Point is, we'd see him all the time, home and away. He'd be at the Maui Classic, or he'd be down in Jamaica or Puerto Rico at the holiday tournaments. And most recently, in his later years, Mac was traveling with us to a road game or two. I say us, the team, on the team charter every year. He became a generous donor to Iowa basketball. And obviously, as the father of Kent McCausland, the McCausland family is very special and dear to Iowa basketball. I didn't know Skylar Moss. I know Rick Heller well, and I'm very close in following the Iowa baseball program. And I know what kind of a character that Skylar brought, a competitive nature, all out. He sold out like most of Heller's players do, all of Heller's players do. And I'm sure they're dedicating this season to Skylar and all past Hawkeye baseball players.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because talking to Jeff Horner a couple of weeks ago about Skylar's passing, and they both had a similar cancer, and Jeff Horner beat his successfully, as did Skylar, and then here it came back to Skylar, and within a couple of years it took him, but that's all I've heard. Like you, I didn't have the privilege of meeting Skylar, but great fighting spirit. And you do have one Henry Tippie story, if you don't mind. I've got to impart that you got a correction from him on the air, and I love the spirit. And you said this was 10 years ago, so he'd have been 85 years old and still spunky.
Yeah, and Henry and the Tippie family, great people, Henry and his brother. And so I'm interviewing him at halftime on a Saturday night game. And it was a big game, a night game. It might have been Michigan or Ohio State, perhaps. And Henry had flown in from Texas with his wife, and they brought him in at halftime. And I said, well, tell me about you and your brother's Tippie Business School and how that got started. What was the genesis of that? And he looked me straight in the eye without blinking. He said, that is my business school. That business school is named after me. So I got the hint right away that Henry put forth the seed money and supported the Tippie business. And he was still very active in the Tippie Business School right up until the time of his passing. And it's one of the top business schools on any campus anywhere in America. So we're grateful for all the Tippies, but especially for Henry Tippie.
And I love the fact when you said, boy, it taught me a lesson to definitely have my ducks in a row.
Well, do your homework. Do your homework, and of course they brought him in live, so we had no time to visit before the interview. And I'd met Henry one time prior to that, just in passing. But what a great human being. What a very philanthropic and charitable human being. And you know, back to Skylar, I'm a prostate cancer survivor, which is different than his cancer, but I can identify a little bit with what Skylar and Jeff Horner, and I've talked to Jeff about this in the past, went through. And I'm, 7 years, I think, 8 years cancer-free, but you never say totally free. You go back, get your checkups, do the blood work, make sure that everything's clear, and I do that twice a year. So far, so good, but we certainly remember Skylar.
Yes, absolutely, and congratulations to you. And Jeff Horner said the exact same thing like you said. You got to stay vigilant continually. So, and my mom was a cancer survivor. So, as we always say in that, helping to fight cancer with the Fight with Flash Foundation, it touches everybody, Dolph, if not directly, indirectly in other ways. So, great stuff from you. We look forward to 2 more segments with you. So stay tuned for Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Yeah, that's him. Hawkeye legendary broadcaster Gary Dolphin through the whole show today. So we'll be back with more Hawkeyed in just a few moments.
To make the Mershman Seeds delivery experience even better this year, Mershman Seeds is offering you a brand new Apple app called Mershman Delivers. It will give you the estimated time of delivery down to the second and updates you as our truck makes its way to your dealership. Mershman Delivers will provide you the answer to the #1 question we get when it comes to delivery. When exactly will the Mershman truck be here? Available on the Apple App Store. Download Mershman Delivers today.
Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we're participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Welcome back to Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Gary Dolphin joining us throughout the show. Legendary Hawkeye broadcaster. Dolph, 25 plus years with the Hawks, 50 years total in broadcasting, and what a season, basketball season we have, men's basketball season right now. Before I get to that, though, my production partner, Rob Miller, and Homegrown Media. Rob and I were talking last fall. What a success, when I mentioned to you in the first segment about what a success it's been here at the University of Iowa. Always has been, but really hitting its apex this year with field hockey, soccer in the fall, of course, football. Then you look at basketball with what Bluter's bunch is doing, not just Caitlin Clark. Monica Sonano is coming back for another year, she said the other day. Big night, as again, we record this on Tuesday afternoon, the night of the Michigan State game. So we are here at Carver Hawkeye Arena in the fellow room. You see that great, beautiful Hawkeye logo behind us. And speaking of logo, that's where Caitlin Clark does most of her shooting anymore, it seems like, Dolph. But what give me your thoughts before we get to men's basketball. You take a look at the Iowa programs in totality. Of course, wrestling, we got Midlands upcoming, the Big Ten tourney, the Nationals. The Hawks are right there at number 2 behind Penn State after winning a national title last year. The Brands boys got it rolling. What an impact the Brands documentary had on the Big Ten network. There's a lot going on here at Iowa. We are going to talk men's basketball in a moment with you. We are going to talk men's college football with you in a little bit. But got to start talking about some of these other programs that we touch on each show. But wow, what can you say about Bluter's bunch and also Brands' bunch?
5 Big Ten championships this past school year, and I don't know if they'll threaten that number again, but gymnastics, you mentioned field hockey, soccer was the defending Big Ten champions from a year ago. Wrestling speaks in and of itself with a national title as well as a Big Ten title, and it goes on and on and on. And then football and basketball have been so consistent, Dave, to your point. And Caitlin Clark and Monica Sonano, and there are other good players on that team, but I call those two the snap, crackle, and pop of
Sure.
Hawkeye women's basketball. But it starts at the top with Coach Bluter. What is this, her 22nd year,
Yes.
if memory serves me correct, and they've been to postseason or will be in postseason 20 of those 22 years after this season. Great home win over a sweep of Indiana, top 5 ranked team. Last week on Monday night, as you mentioned, and they're rounding into shape. They're getting better defensively, and you could say that about the Hawkeye men also. And there's no question these two teams can score points. I mean, they're right up there near the top of the Big Ten seemingly every year.
Yeah.
But they're getting better defensively, and it's ironic to me because with the men and with the women, the deficiencies, if you can call it that, that are getting less and less, are rebounding and defense, and it's not a coincidence that they're planing up because they're better rebounding teams and they're better at the defensive end of the floor, and the Hawkeye men, I can only speak to the men because I see them day in day out, but I would guess the women are getting better too at taking care of the basketball. The men lead the nation in fewest turnovers a game, and that to me, when you can rebound and take care of the basketball, that's going to get you half a dozen, 7 or 8 more possessions a game. You're going to have a lot better chance to win.
It's so intriguing that you mentioned all that because I had Keegan Murray and Chris Murray on this show this summer and this fall, also the McCaffrey boys, Fran and Margaret McCaffrey, and everyone to a person said the same thing you just said. If we can rebound and defend, of course, who doesn't say that? But you mentioned the men's and women's teams, and now we'll talk about the men's team specifically. But I do got to put a shout out, besides mentioning, we said field hockey and soccer and all the other sports, gymnastics. I heard you and Bobby Hansen, your basketball broadcast partner and former Hawkeye great player, talk about the Heller's boys, Heller ball, and also golf is on the roll. Softball is going to be starting again. A lot happening for the Hawkeye sports scene. But talking about this men's basketball team that you get to spend time with and see on the regular, and Keegan Murray said this to me this summer, and it's just gone down the line, whomever I've spoken to in the program the rest of this time, Dolph. Fun, entertaining, they get the ball off the glass when they can defend, and then when they can't or don't shoot well, but my goodness, Dolph, when they are hitting it right, and it doesn't matter necessarily at times who it is. Of course you need Keegan as you're smiling. It's a band of characters, isn't it?
It really is, and the style's not going to change. It's Fran McCaffrey's style of play, and he goes out and recruits and fit pieces to his style. But that said, I didn't think it could ever get any better than last year. You had the National Player of the Year in Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp, who's a phenomenal talent. They're both in the NBA right now. There were others. Jack Nunge transferred out, but Jack was solid when he was healthy.
And he's doing very well at Xavier this year.
He is. So Fran knows where the players are, and then they coach him up. And I didn't think it could get any better than last year, or the last couple of years with Garza and Wieskamp. And I'm not saying it's gotten better, but Keegan Murray is just off the charts.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a bona fide Player of the Year candidate this year. His brother Chris is coming on like a freight train. I mean, he's catching him and everything that Keegan does. The McCaffrey brothers are a great fit. You look at those 2 sophomores, Euless and Tony Perkins, who came in together. They have been terrific in tandem or individually. moving Jordan Bohannon back to the point, that's just a brilliant move by Fran, because Jordan says he feels more comfortable. He sees the floor better if he's standing out front, looking left and right. And frankly, he's been a better, in my view, spot-on shooter, straight line 3-point jump shooter since the day he stepped on campus. So they're pushing the right buttons right now. They're getting better off the glass. They had 40 rebounds at Ohio State last week, 20 offensive boards, 18 more points, or 18 second chance points off those 20 offensive rebounds. And they're averaging about 8.5 turnovers a game. Only Wisconsin has been better nationally at taking care of the basketball. And the better news is the Hawks are turning over the opponent. They're getting 4 or 5 more possessions a game. And that is critical if you're going to come down and win close games, which we all know in the postseason that's true.
It really is. And, Dolph, there's so many directions I want to go with you. In the last segment, we're going to talk Hawks football, but also Dolph's other endeavor, Gary Dolphin's Iron Bar. All his information at the bottom of the screen throughout this program, along with mine. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about what you just said about this basketball team. And of course, we got everything going on at Carver Hawkeye night. The Michigan State game, Hawks are now 18-8 overall, 8-7 going into this game tonight in the Big Ten. That magic number of winning 20 regular season games after tonight, by the time this airs, they'll have played the Nebraska game as well. So we're going to have 2 games in, and then of course Monday is senior night back here at Carver against Northwestern, and then on the road next Thursday at Michigan, and then close out on March 6th on Sunday at Illinois. So 5 pretty good games laid out in front of the Hawks. It's all destiny's in their hands. But you want that magic number of 20, hopefully regular season wins before you even get to the Big Ten tourney. But Dolph, I don't want to get into the Juwan Howard, Wisconsin, all that. Everybody's hit that on Twitter and public comments, and Fran mentioned it on Monday's press availability. Unless you had something to add to that, any other thoughts, or we'll move on to the Hawks?
No, the only thing I would say is it got out of hand at the end, and Juwan, I don't know Juwan that well. I've met him a couple times. He was a great player, a member of the Fab Five, and to me has always behaved the right way. I've known Greg Gard a long time. I covered Greg when he was a player at UW Platteville for Bo Ryan.
Yes.
And then coached under Bo for a lot of years. And so Greg is a class act. I think probably at that moment, maybe it would have been better for a phone call the next day between the two as to why Juwan was pressing with the game decided, or why Greg decided to call a timeout. Now, they've explained their reasons, but perhaps that wasn't, obviously Juwan was upset about taking the timeout.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're 2 coaches that are competitive. They coach to the end, and we'll get by it. I'm glad the fines and the suspensions have been handed out now, and we can move on.
I like the way you're thinking and moving on, but I wish Juwan would have remained as playful as he did when he stepped out in the court and erroneously grabbed the ball that was rolling away here the other night at Carver and got a B grade technical, so it wasn't I guess an ejectable technical, but
and that's more his personality. He's playful. He's a big kid. Wasn't that long ago he was playing in the NBA.
Correct.
So that I think the moment just got away from him.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking so much about he and Greg, arm wrestling there in the handshake line, but for a head coach to reach out and thankfully, not that it's right in any form or fashion, but thankfully he opened his hand because he had that fist pumped there, and not that he was going to commit anything so egregious, but when you slap or shove or push another coach, that's serious stuff.
Well, and Fran had talked about his feelings of should there be handshake lines or not, and we've had that kerfuffle here a couple times, either at Carver Hawkeye with Fran or his teams in the past, and he just said if somebody wants to talk after the game, he said, I'm not unsportsmanlike, as you all know. He addressed the press yesterday on Monday, the 21st of February, and said that. So interesting to note, though, moving forward, tonight, big game at Carver Hawkeye, again, Michigan State, going to retire or re-retire some jerseys, pay homage to Maury Weir, fantastic Hawkeye back in the day, Chuck Darling, and of course, Roy Marble, who left us way too soon. And then at halftime, that'll be pregame, then at halftime, Luka Garza back in the house, and we saw him on national TV last night at the women's game. So Luka back, you're going to be talking to Luka later on this afternoon. All kinds of great stuff. Exciting times. Again, as we circle back to that, Dolph, exciting times at the University of Iowa Athletics.
And thankfully, the weather is improving as we speak here, Dave. Anything can happen in February weather-wise, but
that's for
it's
sure.
going to be fun to see Luka. Chuck Darling, Murray Weir, I didn't get to see them play, but I met Coach Weir a number of times.
And you saw Roy Marble play.
Waterloo East, yeah, and of course I watched the great Roy Marble run up and down the floor with those wonderful teams in the mid-'80s. So it's going to be a magical night indeed.
Looking forward to it. So Dolph, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and close out the show, talk some Hawkeye football, Gary Dolphin's Iron Bar, all the great stuff. Time goes so quickly with this guy, the legend, Gary Dolphin, Hawkeye, 25 plus years Hawkeye play-by-play voice for the Hawkeyes. This is Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more to close out the show with Dolph in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We're living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through, and the same holds true here. From our fair upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
Who do you trust to produce the best yield? A seed company that's chasing technology or a seed company that's writing a book on it? Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Mershman Seeds has been treating soybeans for decades, long before it was commonplace. We're the leader in technology, introducing Mershman Seeds' latest advancement in seed treatment, with an added fungicide to help produce a faster, more even emergence every single time. Who can you trust with your yields? Mershman Seeds, your friend in the field.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara, joined by Gary Dolphin, legendary Hawkeye broadcaster. Dolph, we got just such a short time in this last segment. Again, if you're into the Dubuque area, please go to Gary Dolphin's Iron Bar. You'll see all the information at the bottom of the screen and throughout this program. You'll love it there. It's got a little theme in all three different places, but let's get to Hawkeye football. What a season it was, Dolph. 10-2 regular season, a couple of hiccups in the back-to-back games against Purdue and Wisconsin. And then at the end of the season, tough loss to Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. And then, of course, losing a tough game to former Hawkeye Mark Stoops and to Kentucky 20-17. So all in all, a 10-4 season, but in that main crux getting there was 10-2. Your thoughts on Hawkeyes going to the NFL and Hawkeyes coming back and after last season's great season, how this upcoming season looks to you?
Hard to argue with a West Division championship and getting to the big game. I remind people who thought Michigan dominated that football game. It was 14-6 midway to late in the third quarter, and the Hawks just could not muster enough consistent offense. Michigan hit two big plays in that first half that put them up 14-6. Now, I'm not taking anything away from the Wolverines. They're legit. Their defense was outstanding. Aiden Hutchison will probably be the #1 overall pick. But Iowa's defense, Iowa's special teams were consistent throughout the season. The Hawkeyes' offense, I thought, improved as the year went on. They had their ups and downs, and I know Kirk Ferentz and Brian Ferentz and others are smart enough to figure out where they need to get better at, and they're working on that phase of the game right now, Dave. So the bowl game is a reward for the players, and Iowa led the game with a minute to go.
Yeah.
Kentucky drove it down there and was able to get a score, in terms of the record or the recruiting rankings, it means nothing. It was a great trip to Orlando. Hawks hadn't been there in a while, and it's a great springboard into spring training and then the new season coming up. A lot of excitement. They got a lot of good people coming back in all three phases. That young offensive line, which struggled at times, save for Tyler Linderbaum, is going to be that much better this year. And the running backs, those two freshmen, averaged 6 yards a carry in the bowl game. So I'm fired up.
You should be. And wide receiver room is very talented. Tight ends with Laporta and Lachey. And, you mentioned with quarterback, it's going to be an interesting year. Last minute we have here before you say our goodbyes, Dolph. And you see how great it is that all the Hawkeyes in the NFL, we had two Hawks get to touch the Lombardi Trophy this year with the Rams, with A.J. or Alaric Jackson and Jake Gervais. Had Parker Hesse on this show a couple weeks ago. Great to see the Hawks in the top 5 in the NFL of number of former players in the NFL right now.
Yeah, don't forget Mike Daniels and Riley Reif.
We're with the Bengals. We talked about them.
Yep. And Riley was injured, unfortunately.
Hey, and Dolph, we had James Vandenberg and James Morris kind of smile and say, we'd like to tell you stories about Mike Daniels and Riley Reif, but we want to keep you on the air. So we talked about those guys.
I'll keep those to myself also.
But those are great stories and great to hear that. And I asked Parker Hesse, I said, is there something in the water at the Hanson, football complex here at the University of Iowa, and he smiled and he said, Dave, we just know how to work. It's a business. And they really do know expectations when they get on campus here, don't they, Dolph?
It's called the system, and when you look at the guys that didn't get there this year, there's Hawkeyes sprinkled all over the NFL, and it'll continue to be that way because of the style they run.
Love it.
And scouts know that when an Iowa kid comes into the NFL camp, you can count on them.
They're road ready. Dolph, I can't say thank you
Okay,
enough.
Dave.
Great stuff.
Great to see you.
Great seeing you again. He is Gary Dolphin, legendary Hawkeye broadcaster. This is Hawkeyed with me, Dave O'Hara. Dolph, until next time, thank you so much. And to thank you to the viewers for tuning in as always as well. So for me and Hawkeyed, that's all from us. Thanks to all of you. And as always, thanks for staying tuned at the end of the program for these rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the attention and credit they so richly deserve. And as always, to our aforementioned guests and to you, the viewers. That's all from us at Hawkeyed. Thanks to all of you.